Good morning and welcome to the daily cyber briefing for Wednesday, the 4th of September. There is a security advisory from the people that make YubiKeys talking about a vulnerability in the Infineon cryptographic library utilized by YubiKey 5 series. And the security keys series with firmware prior to 5.7.0 and UBHSM2 with firmware prior to 2.4.0. They are rating the issue as moderate, but given the fact that hardware token YubiKeys are probably the most secure way of dealing with authentication, I would suggest that if you've gone to the trouble of making this stuff work in your environment, it's probably more important to you than maybe that rating would indicate. It is The vulnerabilities are exploitable only as part of a sophisticated targeted attack to recover private keys from devices. The attacker would need physical possession of the YubiKey or the security key or the HSM. And knowledge of the accounts they want to target. So it is perhaps not the easiest. Certainly not one of those sort of trivial attacks which is going to cause a lot of people loss of sleep. But as I say, you're not using things like a YubiKey unless you are taking security particularly seriously, in which case these issues may well be higher on your list. So would recommend that you have a look at the security advisory linked to the briefing. There are mitigations and actions that you can take listed out there, but just be aware, YubiKey have given this enough of a severity rating for me to recommend that you take it seriously. Zytel is warning of critical OS command injection flaw in routers. Patches have been made available. The particular issues are the particular flaw of concern is CVE 2024 7261 with a CVSS score of 9.8, which makes it pretty much critical. It's an input validation fault caused by improper handling of user-supplied data, which allows remote attackers to execute arbitrary commands on the underlying OS. Various Zytel access points are impacted. The NWA series, NWA, there's a list, a long enough list that I'm not going to read it out. But basically NWA devices, WOC devices, WAX devices, and WBE series devices. If you are using any of those, I would strongly recommend you have a look at this particular article. Patches are available, but of course, being networking infrastructure, these things tend to get put into the bucket of I'll get around to it sometime, or risk to service means I will just leave it alone, cross my fingers, and hope that nobody exploits me. As I've said before, patch and be damned is a pretty good way forward. Don't do it without any testing, but don't spend half your life or create a cottage industry of regression testing everything because you've done something fairly minor. Somewhere in the middle is probably about right. There are a whole bunch of other fixes that have been pushed out by Zytel at the moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Addressing 7 other vulnerabilities. So if you're using Zytel Kit Zyxel kit. Goodness me. Zyxel. Zyxel. Difficult for me to pronounce. Kit. Have a look at this and begin to put in place actions to get that stuff patched and upgraded before it gets exploited. There was an article that I came across, which I haven't actually got to hand, but and we have mentioned this in the past, that the length of time between vulnerability disclosure and exploit is rapidly shrinking, depending on how you measure these things. The last stats I saw was that it's under 5 days. So given the fact that by the time things have hit the news, you've probably lost a couple of days anyway. Definitely worth making sure that you have agility in your abilities to patch things. And if that means designing resilient solutions so that you can take down parts of it and patch and test and then bring up that part, take the other part and patch and test it and so on and so forth, that is probably not a bad thing. And then finally from me today, nice short briefing today, Google has patched actively exploited Android zero-day privilege escalation vulnerability, which is quite a mouthful. CVE 2024 32896. There is a fairly decent write-up in GB Hackers, which we will link to the briefing. However, as always, it is important to keep mobile device OS up to date, bearing in mind that, especially for Android, the version of Android that you may be running on your devices may not line up exactly with Google's versions. So specific vendors or specific manufacturers of devices may be running their own stream of Android. So have a look, make sure that your particular flavor of Android is being patched and updated. Normal warnings about not running stuff that doesn't get security patches. So if you've got any old or out-of-dated stuff, seriously think about replacing it. Other than that, keep on top. Also bear in mind that although you can set devices to say also update, that's all well and good, but you do need to at least go in periodically and check that they have done what you're expecting them to do, because whether if an update fails or doesn't get implemented for whatever reason, you may not be notified about those things. So always worth making sure that you are on top of this stuff, and it is also worth doing periodic reboots of stuff, because over the years I've seen on many occasions patch solutions that say yes, the patch has been applied, but the reality is it's been applied but it isn't active until the next reboot, because there are effectively processes running in memory or in the kernel that won't get refreshed to the new version until to using the new versions of things until the next time they're restarted. So just every now and then restart your devices anyway. Right, that's all from me for today. Hope you have a good